Welcome to the 2024 Town of Winchester Annual Budget Meeting. Thank you. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the 2024 Town of Winchester Annual Budget Meeting. This is the third meeting of this budget season, since the first two budgets were rejected by referendum. I'm Dennis Stressel, and longtime resident of Winchester. The Board of Selectmen have asked me to act as moderator for this meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we will determine a date for the third budget referendum, provide further details regarding the budget, and give attendees the opportunity to speak, ask questions, or make motions to reduce budget items. After the town manager and business manager speak, individuals will be allowed to speak, ask questions, or make motions to reduce line items for up to 3 minutes. Any motions must be related to decreases in line items. Motions properly made and seconded must be approved by a majority in order to pass. Vote will be by paper ballot immediately following the motion. If you make a motion to reduce an item in the budget, it must include the account number and dollar amount. Individuals will be called up in order on the sign-up sheet. If you did not sign up ahead of time, you will be allowed to speak after all the people who signed up are done. Everyone who desires to speak will be given the opportunity, so please do not shout out questions or comments from your seats. At my discretion, speakers may have an additional 3 minutes after all speakers are finished. I'd now like to call our town clerk, Glenn Albanesius, to read the call of the meeting.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, warning to all persons entitled to vote in town meetings of the town of Winchester, County of Litchfield, the state of Connecticut. They are hereby notified and warned that the second, actually third, annual town budget meeting will be held at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, July 16, 2024, at the Gilbert High School auditorium located at 200 Williams Avenue, Winsted, Connecticut, for the following purpose. 1, to receive a report of the Board of Selectmen, including its revised estimates of receipts and expenditures and its recommendations in accordance with the law, and to take action upon the same, adopting a budget for the town for the next fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024, to be voted on at referendum, and two, to take proper action to come before said meeting.
Thank you, Glenn. To take effect, the budget must be approved by a majority of voters via a town-wide referendum. By town charter, the referendum must be held 14 to 21 days after this meeting. The registrars have recommended that the referendum be held on Tuesday, July 30th, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Pearson School. Can I have a motion to schedule the referendum? And you want? Did you get that? Second? Candace Bouchard. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Unopposed? Abstentions? The referendum will be held on July 30th. It passes. I'd now like to ask our town manager and business manager to summarize the proposed budget. Please hold your questions and comments until the public is invited to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. For those who don't know me, I am Paul Harrington. I am the town manager here in Winchester/Winsted. This is our third time here tonight, but I'm happy to report that the budget that I'm about to present to all of you has unanimous support from our Board of Selectmen. Our Board of Selectmen met last week. It was a Tuesday evening. We were there until about 11 o'clock at night, looking at all of the different avenues that we could take. And at the end of the evening, this budget that is about to be presented to all of you passed unanimously by every member that was seated on the Board of Selectmen that night. So, great job to the Board of Selectmen, and I thank them for the countless hours that they have put in to many of these budget revisions. If we could go to the next slide, Paul. So, some of the slides, if you've been here before, are going to be repeats, but I think it's important to repeat some of the slides again. We do have some budget drivers that are driving this particular increase. The town did not have a police contract in place for 2.5 years. So what does that mean? So you're looking at 2.5 years or 2 years of wages that weren't paid out that now need to be reflected in this next budget. So our police didn't get any type of increases, right? We've retroed their pay. But at the end of the day, when you look at the police department as a total, and you look at that wage line, and you say, wow, that's a huge increase. It's 3 years of wages that you're accounting for in one fiscal year. So that's a huge driver in this particular budget. But keeping in mind that the town benefited from 2 years of no driver in that because there was no contract settlement. So for 2 years in that wage line for our police department, it was zero. So on year 3, now that we have a contract that's been ratified and settled, that now we're paying back the first year that didn't have a contract, the second year, and now obviously the third year. So that was a huge driver in this budget. And we all know that the importance of having police, happy police people that come and service us and protect us. So that's a huge driver in this budget. The next one is the increase in the ambulance expense. And I've gone over this in prior meetings, and I hope, and I don't know what the attendance is on YouTube. We are televising this for people that maybe couldn't make it out tonight, or maybe want to watch the video at a later date. But we have a problem in our ambulance. We can't meet the demand of our emergency services. You could wait 40, 45 minutes when seconds matter. So our ambulance company came to us and they said, we want to add another full-time crew. We don't want your residents to wait 45 minutes. Well, that comes with a $208,000 increase. But I think there's not anybody in the room or at home will say, well, I'd rather wait 45 minutes when I'm having a heart attack. But it's a budget driver. It truly is. Quality education, look at the room we're in. You know, I have 2 young kids, and, you know, everybody's seeing inflation at home. It's real. And when a box of markers used to cost about $2, and now they cost about $8, but we still need our kindergartners to, you know, be able to start writing their names and need all of those utensils, all the way up to our high school kids and all of the tech devices that they need. This, when you invest in education, it's one of the best investments you can make, because we're investing in our children. So it's a budget driver. The one that nobody wants to talk about, one that we got to do a better job on, or that I definitely got to do a better job on, is we had a decrease in our grand list value. Our grand list dropped last year. We're going to look at a slide and we're going to show you exactly what that meant for our revenue. And, you know, when you lose revenue, you can do one or two things. You can cut, or you have to raise revenue. Now we've cut to the bone, and this is why you're seeing, you know, the minimum increase that is before us tonight. And loss of non-property tax revenue primarily is going to be state aid. Gotta love the good old state of Connecticut. You know, they like to give us a little bit less every year, or maybe they give us the same, which would be great if we didn't have this record inflation that we've all heard about. So they expect us to do the same, or do more with the same amount of money. So we, you know, our state aid did drop a little bit. Obligated capital expense for projects that are already going on. One of the things that this Board of Selectmen has made a very conscious effort with, and prior ones as well, is it's time to start investing back into our town. We have aging infrastructure. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about roads a little bit later on. We have aging equipment. We need to keep those capital investments up, because we're just going to continue to kick the can down the road. And then obviously, which I've talked about pretty much in every single one of these bullet points, is the inflationary costs that we're all witnessing at home. Or if we can go to the next slide. So one of the budget drivers that I talked about was the grand list drop. So our grand list, when you look at it, dropped just over $6 million when we compare grand list 22 to grand list 23. And when you lose $6 million in actual grand list value, that equates to an actual revenue number. That revenue number is $160,000 that we had last year that we don't have this year. So even if we kept everything the same, and there was no inflation, and we didn't have a police contract, and we wanted to wait 45 minutes for an ambulance, we would still be down $160,000 in the revenue. All things stayed the same because of our grand list drop. So we obviously have to look at that, and that's a problem, and it's one of the budget drivers. Or if we can go to the next slide. We got creative this year. I came to the Board of Selectmen, and I said, I think it's time we do a personal property audit. And I'm going to own this one for the rest of my life, and I'm going to learn from it. When I talked about personal property audit, I kind of skimmed through it at our last presentation. I did a horrible job, and I'm sorry. So I want to take a little bit of time, and I want to explain what exactly a personal property audit is. A personal property tax is a levy on movable assets owned by businesses that are not permanently affixed to parts of the real estate. So there's two key points: businesses and that aren't permanently attached. So what are examples of those? Well, it's machinery and equipment, it's computers, it's furniture, and it's other items used in business operations. You know, I heard a rumor going around town that the new guy is going to go out and tax your kayak. You happen to live at the lake, or you happen to own a kayak. Simply not true. This isn't going after the residents. This may go after a business, and I have been up at the lake, and I haven't seen a kayak rental shop, but I haven't seen everything yet. This may affect a company that didn't fill out their personal property declaration, and they do have kayaks, and it's how they make money in their business. Yes, we would tax those particular kayaks. But your kayaks, as an example at home, are not going to be they're not going to be taxed. So why are we doing a personal property tax audit? Well, we're doing it for tax fairness. Most of you in this room probably receive 2 bills from the town. Now, we're gonna leave water and sewer out of this, right? Most of you receive 2 bills or 3 bills depending on how many cars you own. It's your house and it's a motor vehicle. And your house gets reassessed every 5 years and we know the value and here's your bill. Your motor vehicle, we get the list from the DMV and from the state of Connecticut and we know the value and there you go. Well, every year we send every business here a personal property declaration. And we leave it up to those businesses to say, tell us what you got. Tell us what you got, and you're on the honor system. Okay? So I called up a company called TMA. Nora, if we can just switch to the next slide. TMA I worked with in a prior town I worked with, and TMA has been around since the 1970s. They're licensed in 24 states. They have done 500 state and local jurisdiction. They are licensed in 24 states, and I've worked with over 500 state and local jurisdictions to perform over 300,000 audits. 10,000 of those are alone in Connecticut. So what does tax fairness mean? What we're going to do is we're going to bring the experts in, and we're going to look at roughly 52 accounts in this year. And we're going to say, okay, if you're above $50,000, we're going to, any small business below $50,000, we're not even going to look at that, right? There's about 847 of those accounts. We're going to go where the bigger pond is, the bigger fish are right now. Maybe down the road after 3 years, we come back, we revisit, we look at those 847 accounts. We're going to have them reach out to 52 accounts this year. When they feel in year 1, they're going to find roughly $12 million of personal property that isn't being recorded in the town. This goes back to that tax fairness we talked about. Tax fairness. I'm going to charge you what I assess your house at. I'm going to charge you what the DMV tells me your car's worth. And I'm going to charge that business whatever they tell me they think they have. That's not tax fairness. Not at all. Some of you shaking your head. That's not fair at all. So this keeps a level playing field. And it also keeps businesses honest. And here's why. Let's say you got 2 brake shops here in town. One brake shop reports their brake light, the other one doesn't. How's that fair? How's the guy being honest? The brake shop owner that does report it and pays his taxes, and the other guy doesn't. Can he offer you a better price because he's got a little bit better margin because he's not reporting it? Look at a gas station. Gas stations are great. Most gas stations roughly have all the same amount of equipment. Coolers, tanks, it's all of that. You look at the gas station and say, okay, 5 of the gas stations in town are reporting they have this. This guy over here, he's saying he's only got like an ice cream cooler. I've been to a lot of gas stations. There's not one gas station I've been to that only has one cooler. But what this TMA audit's going to do, it's going to create fairness amongst it all. Now, this isn't something new. This town was doing these personal property tax audits for many years. You know how many we got to every year? About 3 or 4. That's why we're bringing the experts in. You know, we would do about 3 or 4. It would take us, a whole lot of time to get through them all, and we'd have to reset it again. We're going to knock out 52 of these over the next 3 years. Over the next 3 years, what this TMA company has told us that they think they can do, they've been doing it for many years, almost 50 years. They think they're going to find over $30 million of personal property that we're not taxing. It's going to equate to over $1 million in grand list. We talked about that $6 million loss in our grand list. Imagine if we could get this all done in 1 year. Now we're only down 24, or now we're up 24 million. It'd be great. Unfortunately, TMA can't knock out all the audits in 1 year. So we're doing this over 3 years, and roughly, you know, we hope to bring in, you know, we budgeted conservative. We're putting about, you know, they think they can bring in about $360,000 in year 1. But we got to test the waters. They're new to us in town. I've worked with them before. I can tell you what they thought they were going to bring in my last time. They blew it out of the water, and not by a small amount, by millions of dollars. So I'm excited about it, but I think it's important that I heard a rumor mill going around that I'm going after our residents and I'm going after kayaks, 4-wheelers. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say if you own a recreation business and you're renting them out for the day and you're not declaring it, yeah, we're probably going to come after you with one of these. But if it's just something you use on the weekend and something you use at night, we're not going after it. Okay, businesses, and it's to create that tax fairness. Oh, hey, I had a slide. Nora, I'm sorry. Can we go to the next slide? So there we are right here. Here's the 3-year program. 155 accounts. If you look, 836 accounts aren't even going to be touched. And those are the ones that are under $50,000. Then you go all the way down over, $100 million. We don't have, that's where we got to find some business. We got to find the $100 million guy, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But the 52 accounts are going to be made up of a mixture of A, B, C's, D2s, and D3s. All right. So TMA, they're coming up with it. We had a conversation with them today. They've started to engage and look at particular things, and so roughly $36 million is what they think they're going to find over 3 years. It's huge. It's over $1 million of revenue that we should have been collecting all along. We're collecting it from all of you in here because we send you what your house is worth. We send you what your car is worth. And then we go to our business and say, can you tell us what you got? So, exciting program. I hope that clears a lot of it up. I think I did a poor job, and I own that. So I wanted to at least take a few minutes and walk everybody through what this personal property tax audit was all about. And if there's questions at the end, definitely bring them forward. Or if we can go to the next slide. So what else did we do? Changes in expenses. So when the budget failed, back on July 2nd, I had a department head meeting, and we were kind of bummed, and we sat there, and we, as leaders, we sat down, and I tasked all of our department heads. I said, I need you to get into your budgets. I need you to see what you can find and see what you can do. And Selectman Marino actually said it best at last week's meeting. He said, we became more efficient, Paul. I said, we did. They looked hard. They scrubbed hard. And, when you look at it, it's small, but it all adds up. Finance office offered up $1,300, $2,000, $100, different line items. Assessor, all the way down the list. If we can switch to the third slide, keep going. There you go. So we came up with a reduction of $149,373. That was the total reduction that we came up with the department heads to create better efficiencies here in Town Hall to offer a little bit of reprieve on the ask on the second round. Board of Selectmen made which I believe is a wise decision, is they wanted no cuts to the education. They believe that educating our children is one of the most important things that we can do. They've already received the cut from the initial ask, which is about a little over $300,000. And the social services director was reduced from a full-time role to a part-time role. That was what made up our Tuesday night meeting about a week ago. Or if we go to the next slide. So what does this all look like compared to the budget of last year to the budget we hope goes forward this year? In the budget that just expired on June 30th, we spent just over $39 million we had approved. This budget is going to go to $40,806,370, about $1.6 million more of an increase. But when you really look and go back to those budget drivers we talked about, you looked at the police contract, you looked at the ambulance, you looked at funding education. That's not a bad ask. And you look at the inflationary cost, and you looked at the $160,000 in the grand list drop. There's the numbers. Or if we can go to the next slide. This is always a fun slide to look at. Where does your money go? So, as always, and it's no different in any other town, the biggest portion of the pie is obviously going to be our Board of Education, 55%. But as you go around the pie, you can see, each one of your dollars and what percentage of the total budget it's going towards. But it's always a fun slide to look at. We're going to put this up online as well, so if you ever wanted to clue in on anything, I'll get this presentation up online. Next slide, Nora. So what are we asking for now? So the last year's mill rate was 26.39. The new proposed mill rate would be 27.24, a 0.85 mill rate increase, roughly a 3.21% increase, 3.21%. What does that mean for us? What does it mean as everyday people? What is it going to cost me, Paul? 3.21, I don't want to do that. So let's say your property is assessed at 150. Oh, next slide, Nora, I'm sorry. I thought you switched there. Let's say your property is assessed at $150,000. The additional tax burden a year would be $126.95, roughly 35 cents a day. Property 2, $200,000 assessment, roughly a 46 cents a day increase. And property 3, $250,000, $211.59, roughly 58 cents a day to fund all of the things that we talked about. How does that equate to other towns? Nora, next slide. So here we are. There's one at the top that's an interesting one. It's a town I used to be at. Windsor Locks, population 12,000 people, right? When we wanted to look at towns that had similar populations and similar incomes, because we're all dealing with the same things. So Windsor Locks, 12,000 population, their mill rate increase was 6.9%. They were the big prize winner. But going down, you can see that Stafford had a 5%, Coventry had a 4.9%, Granby had a 3.9%, New Hartford had a 3.8%, Winchester, if approved, 3.2%, Norfolk 2.6%, Plymouth 2.5%, Somers 2.3%, Thomaston 2.2%, and Ansonia 1.0%. You notice that nobody up there is at 0. And if there was a 0, I would have put it up there. I wouldn't be afraid to put it up there. And we would ask questions about it. But everybody, due to budget drivers, and we have the same budget drivers as many of the other towns, a lot of it's going to be the inflation. That's where the mill rates are coming in this year. So we're not out there asking for this tremendous ask that, and oh, by the way, these towns that are up there have approved budgets. We're the only one that doesn't have the approved budget yet. So all of these towns that we're showing up there actually have approved budgets. Their voters came out, voted for those mill rate increases, and they're off and running. When they are able to approve a budget at an early period, May, that unlocks their money so they can go out and bid roads. So they go out and bid roads. They get all the contractors. We're over here still trying to get our budget approved. So when we get our budget approved, we get to go out and bid roads, and hopefully we can find a contractor. But we're behind the 8 ball because 100 and some odd other communities have already approved their budget. They've unlocked their money, and they're out there getting RFPs signed, responded to, and rolling. That's all I have. We're going to bring up Nancy. She's the business manager for the Board of Education. She's going to run down some of the slides that you've seen before. Welcome, Nancy.
Thanks, Bob. So we originally had a $300,000, not close enough, that's better. We originally had a $300,000 budget cut, and subsequently there was a $70,000 budget cut. And so I'm going to take you through briefly what the budget cut was. The total budget cut that we did was, what we took out was $188,000. That's the first bar that you see up there on the left-hand side. We took down benefits by $52,000 plus. We took down, it's hard to read this up here. We took down new hire savings by $18,000 plus. We eliminated part-time manager operations position, which netted $21,840. We had the resignation of one. Okay, thanks. We had the resignation of speech and language pathologist, and that was $54,700. We eliminated 3 part-time administrative assistant positions, which was $51,286. We decreased the ELL teacher by 2/10, which netted $20,002. And then the assumption that we're most likely to get a new superintendent, it won't be as pricey as the one that we got to have as many years as we were fortunate to have her. will net us $20,000. So those are all the decreases. However, to keep the wheels turning, there are some increases that needed to happen. And they total, if you look on the next side of the page, $118,734. We had to increase by one full-time administrative assistant for our Pupil Services office. We needed to go from a part-time to a full-time operations manager in our Pupil Services office, which we anticipate we will be able to fill for $39,025. And those two positions are very important because one of the biggest ticket items that drives our budget is special education, and the costs of special education are very high to this community. We also have added a paraprofessional. All of our paraprofessionals are special ed paraprofessionals. We don't have any extra paraprofessionals hanging around. And we also added a speech and language assistant to make our spread greater for our speech and language program. Rather than having 2 teachers, we will now have 3 assistants, which we're hoping will enable us to reach more children in a more timely and effective manner. Let's go to the next one. So I want to, there's a bunch of numbers on here. I'd like to just have you turn your attention to the second column from the far side. It says proposed budget change. And what I want you to note is that the personnel expense is anticipated to go up $499,740. Children can't learn if there's no one there to teach them. If you continue looking down that column, you'll notice that there are a lot of negative numbers, and that is to ensure that we keep the staff. Paper and pencils don't matter. The kids need people to teach them. And the other big driver of our budget, of course, is Gilbert, and they're in the same boat that we are. So they're asking for a $505,841 increase. We left our ask of the town for our town supportive education the same. The town is good enough to provide these resources to us to keep the lights on, make building repairs, plow the parking lots, and such, pay for the water and sewer, electricity, heat. So that leaves our total ask for the total, the 2 appropriated budget and the town support for education at $744,555, or a 3.32% increase.
Thank you, Paul and Nancy. Nobody has signed up to speak, but you're welcome to come up and speak now for 3 minutes, or ask questions, whatever. Please give your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Nora Mokarski, 605 West Wakefield Boulevard, and this is my 3rd time here. And on behalf of the Board of Education, parents, we need you. Community members, we need you. We need you to come out and vote for our budget that we've got here to present it here for you tonight. And I just want to remind you that the Board of Ed voted, like the Board of Selectmen, unanimously for this budget. It's because we've worked collectively with Melanie, who's moved on, but it's still in part her budget. And it's in the minds of keeping the students, their progress, their forward thinking, putting Winchester on the map, as well as keeping in the mind of the taxpayer. So one of the things that we have to do in recognition that grants would run out, we know that Commissioners Network, which was given to us in receivership, we know those monies were disappearing. We knew that ESSER and ARPA, those were disappearing because we needed help during COVID. We know those bits are disappearing as well. But I also want to let you know that we did not hire new staff. In fact, the statistics are our FTE, which is the full-time equivalent of faculty, as of 2019-2020, pre-COVID, was 146.8 faculty members. Here we are post-COVID, post those grants, and we sit at 148.7. So what did we do? We never hired new people in that sense to fill with grant monies. Rather, we pivoted, we're working creatively, and we're trying to make sure that this district continues to move forward, meeting the needs of the students. Secondly, we voted unanimously in being fiscally conservative. But we also recognize there are contract obligations, thus the ask of 944. We have to meet those contract obligations. There are 4 contracts coming up in 2025. There's 1 contract coming up in 2026. There's another final contract coming up in 2027. So we have to meet those needs and obligations. That's not discretionary. In fact, this year's budget, we had $133,000 when we first started in November that was discretionary, which has now disappeared because we've had to make the cuts that we've had to make. Of which I want to remind you, Gilbert took 150 of the cuts. The other half was Winchester Public Schools, which was the other 150, and then we just absorbed another 70,000. So there really is, a very, very tight budget here that we're talking about. But we also moved the district forward despite this fiscal focus. We've got CHAMP programs that have really brought families together. We have the barbecue out here that brought up to 700 families out here in the parking area. Out here in the back of Pearson. That's something that continues the community. It continues and welcomes parents, welcomes students to who we are, and begins to move and shift our culture around, which in the last 10 years has taken a long time to do, but we're definitely seeing some positivity here that we want to keep going. So CHAMPS is a very important program, as is the drone program. But we do need to hire for a STEM coordinator because we lost the STEM coordinator to somebody else in another district for more money. STEM coordinator was very important for that drone program, you see. So again, we're moving into our 3rd budget. We do want to attract very strong superintendents. Again, this is something I said at the last meeting. It's something that we've got to work around, and something hopefully as a community we can come together. So parents, community members, we need you to come out to vote. We have over 1,000 parents in this community, times 2 in some cases, so it'd be really great that people come around to continue our turnaround success story. And again, we voted unanimously as a Board of Ed because we believe in the future of our kids. Thanks.
Yes, come on up.
I'm Bill Hudon, 232 Granville Road. As with the previous 2 budget hearings, I request that the Board of Selectmen actually explain to us why we should support this budget, and also explain to us what they see as the impact of the cuts that they've made. Thank you.
Just so everyone's aware, the Board of Selectmen wants to hear all the comments and then answer as they're going. You didn't get ignored. I just want to put that out there. They will come up. There may be more, and then they want to address them. So that was the little sidebar that was just going on. So.
Jim Biley, 144 Smith Hill Road. It's my understanding that with this budget, we are still on the hook for extra pay increases and additional benefits for school personnel. This was not cut as far as I know. They were considering cutting ambulance service and not cutting these pay increases. The newspaper noted that this took up more than 80% of the budget, and the number they gave at one point was $692,372. This is not a one-time bill. We, the people of Winsted, are going to be expected to come up with this additional $692,000+ each and every year. I don't know who writes these contracts, but no one should ever promise money that we do not have, as well as promising money that they don't own. I would hope that in the future, the people of Winsted would have some type of say as to whether the amount that goes into a contract and which is our money, that we could say, we're okay with it, or no, it's too much. At this point, it's too late, and my understanding is that that dollar amount is locked in stone, and I don't think that's how this should go. Litchfield went with the school consolidation, and in their first year, they saved $3.5 million. I make motion that the town look into school consolidation for Winsted and get back to us with a plan within 3 weeks. Does anyone second that motion? Okay. You good? Where can we make the motion? Where? But no one in this meeting can make a motion? Okay. The personal property tax audits. We went through this not too long ago with the prior town manager, and the businesses were incredibly taxed. They were taxed so excessively that we, the town, are now being sued for at least $1 million, if not $2 million. And when I say the town is being sued, that means every single person in this room is being sued. That is how excessive those taxes were. The first lawsuit we lost to the tune of $120,000 to some trucking company that was overtaxed. We have to come up with that $120,000. I don't know where that's going to come from. So I would ask the town to please reconsider this type of tax, and again, look into, whenever the proper meeting determines, a school consolidation to try to save that $3.5 million. Thank you.
I'll wait.
Hi, my name is Gaetana Layton, 359 East Wakefield Boulevard. I just have a question. When you were talking about the audit, and you had the breakdown of the numbers that eventually, when they do this audit, and the town would get X amount of dollars, you might have said it, but I don't remember you saying it. I wanted to know that when they have the price of what it costs to have the audit, was that deducted from the price that we could make? That's the only question I have.
I'm going to answer that because that's a quick one. So for this year, oh, grab the mic. Sorry. Yo, that's right. That's an excellent point, and I did fail to mention. So for the roughly $360,000 that they are possibly going to find, it's a $56,000 cost of bringing in TMA. It's $56,000 a year. It's roughly $168,000 over 3 years to hopefully find that $36 million in personal property that we have not taxed, which would equate to just over $1 million. So if you look at over 3 years, the town will spend $167,000 with a gain of just over $1 million. I don't think there's anybody in the room that would think that's a bad investment, that to spend $167 to possibly get $1 million is a bad investment. But great question, and I did fail to mention that.
My name is Lisa Taylor, 138 Shore Drive. At the Highland Lake Association meeting, I learned a lot. What I want to share is about the Ambulance Association. I don't know what decade I was in, but my father and a man named Ben Thomas actually started the first ambulance. I bought a hearse back in the 60s. And so I have in my heart, because of my dad, I just am, you know, really proud of our ambulance service, but I still thought we were a volunteer ambulance service. And it's funny because I knew someone that was sort of the manager of it, and she had given me some information a few years ago, and I guess I forgot about it. But now it's not, there's a few volunteers, and Mrs. Cartnudi is the one that educated me after the Highland Lake Association meeting. I was stunned by what I learned. We're only using one ambulance. The other ambulance is sitting because they don't have the staff to staff it, because they can't afford to staff it. There's some volunteers left, but basically people would like to get paid for what they do nowadays. And they don't have the money. That was the first thing I was shocked about. The reason I even brought it up at all was recently my husband got seriously ill. He has a terminal illness and he really bottomed out. And I called an ambulance. And I gave the new police chief kudos because every time I've called an ambulance, I had a brother who's been ill for the last few years who recently passed. The police officer was the first person there. And then usually the fire people were the next people there. And I've learned that I think the police and the fire or one or the other, they're also trained kind of in some EMS kind of stuff. So the policeman came and was kind and nice and calming. And then the fire people came. And nobody came from the ambulance. And when I called, they said they were at Charlotte Hunter Hospital, so we all thought they'd be there in about 20 minutes to a half an hour. They'd already been at the hospital. We waited, don't even count the phone call, but afterwards, after the phone call, a full 45 to 50 minutes before they showed up. In the meantime, my husband an IV was started, vital signs were done, medication list I gave them. They gave him a nebulizer treatment. They did an EKG. They basically did everything already before the ambulance people even showed up, which was very nice and very helpful, and everybody that was there did a wonderful job. I will tell you that those people were pissed that it took so long for the ambulance people to show up. No one ever gave us an answer why it took so long. And everything was done. All they had to do was put my husband on a gurney and take him to the ambulance. Now, if my husband was having a heart attack or a stroke, he would have been dead. Bottom line. Because you got to give medicines right away for both. So I just wanted to tell my personal story up here. And I'm a recently retired nurse, and I know how important our ambulance is and our EMS staff is. But we need, I think I heard that they're not going to cut anything from the ambulance, and I hope not. If anything, they need an increase. Our families' lives are on the line, our children's lives are on the line. I'll tell you one more story. I have a neighbor, wonderful man. I used to call him Father Knows Best, and his family. They bought a house next to mine. They had teenage children they wanted to keep in their lives, so they bought the house, the boat, everything to keep their children visiting. I used to look out my window at this family and just be totally in envy. She's like Donna Reed from that show, and he was Father Knows Best, and I was so envious of that wonderful family. Well, one day he went water skiing with the family, and he went face down, and I'm pretty sure he probably died like near immediately. Although that already happened a year and a half before, and he was, cardiac-wise, he was deemed fine, so we went water skiing again, I think a year later. It was like watching the Three Stooges. The wife called me to grab her purse and whatever. They were at Perch Rock Trail. There was a doctor on a boat. The doctor went to the boat. The doctor tried to help. They got the guy on land. And it was just the wife and the daughter in the boat at the time. And I look out my back window, and I see the ambulance over at the boat, the dock, the ramp. Okay. They're in the wrong place. They were given the address of Perch Rock Trail, and they're over the other side of the lake. So I called somebody to say, you're in the wrong place. I asked some kids to go out on Perch Rock Trail and wave their arms, so when the ambulance goes by, they get stopped. Their kids are out there on either end of Perch Rock Trail, waving their arms, jumping up and down, the ambulance went right by. So if that man ever had a chance to survive, it was lost. So make sure you have your address on your mailbox or wherever you have it. But this is rinky-dink. This is scary. That man died, and now his family's without that wonderful dad. And it breaks my heart. I think of him all the time. So we need our ambulance people. They need to be trained. We need the money for the ambulance. Because one of these days, it's going to be your life on the line. Thank you.
Hi, Caitlin LaPlante, 158 Tornford Street. You're a very good speaker. You almost have me convinced. You say you're behind the 8 ball when it comes to roads, except for the last 5 years that I've lived here, excuse me, I have not seen any improvements to the roads at all, not even a attempt at a chip seal or anything like that. And I have a child, I have a baby. We drive around the different regional towns to try to get him to go to sleep. And I will see New Hartford and all the surrounding towns doing their roads, redoing their playscapes or playgrounds, their ballparks, their community services, their community centers. And I don't see a whole lot going on in Winsted for the last 5 years. But our budget and our expenses keep going up. So I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me as a resident, I just want to make sure that we're going to get something for our money, I guess. I want to make sure that we're going to see sorry, I'm really nervous. It's my first budget meeting. I've been a homeowner for 5 years, and that's it. I just want to make sure that with all these increases that we keep seeing and that we keep seeing, but we're not seeing any results. I just want to make sure we're actually going to start seeing some results this time. That's pretty much it. Because I know for me, this budget failed because I have not seen the changes. Why are you asking us to give up all this money? And it's a lot of money, to be perfectly fair, and we're not seeing, I can't say we, I'm not seeing any of the changes that was promised for the last 5 years. Even for the last year, I haven't seen it. So I just want the town to promise that bad roads are gonna be fixed. I know Newfield Street, I think, is a bad one. Moore Street is a really bad one. There's a ton in Winsted. They're horrible. And maybe some changes or some updates to some playgrounds for the kids, or the ball fields, updating some of that. Something in the community to kind of help us, show us that yes, we care. That was my point. Thank you.
I just want, you did great.
Okay,
for your first speech. I think me and then also many selectmen are probably going to address what you just said at the end. But I don't want to think we're ignoring you. You did great.
No problem.
You did great.
Thank you.
You did awesome.
Town manager and the selectmen will address all these budget issues.
Good evening, Frank Oliveri, 108 Shore Drive. I've lived here a little over 4 years. I came from Long Island. On Long Island, we did 2 of the things that are problems here. One, we lost our superintendent, and what we did was we interviewed the principals of our 4 schools, and we hired one of them at a lower rate than the ongoing price that was going on Long Island. On Long Island, the superintendent is a race who can get the most money. We hired somebody 15 years ago. He is now the top superintendent on Long Island at a reduced salary from what the other towns are doing. We also have a volunteer fire department, and we have in the fire department covers the ambulance service. We don't have 2. We rely on the county for one, but the firemen in our town run the ambulance and the fire as volunteers. At no cost to the villages, no cost to the town, except for the equipment, which is funded by the town and the county. And that saying maybe not this year, but that's something we can look into. Thank you.
I'm Mary Pollack, and I live at 502 East Wakefield Boulevard. I just have 3 questions for the town manager. I was just wondering, how did the property tax audit that you had in your old town work out for the business people? That's number 1. And number 2,
what kind of businesses were they that were audited? And number 3 is, what kind of business do you think would be beneficial to for the people in this town, as well as for providing taxes? I've noticed that there's businesses going up, and it looks kind of hopeful, but when I look at the kind of, and I'm not putting down anybody that has a business here, I give them a lot of credit for starting their own business. But I mean, I think we have to think to the future by thinking to the past, because it's going to happen, because these big things aren't working anymore, and they're going to come back to the town. We need a grocery store, we need a place to buy clothes, we're going to need that. And we have to think of creative ways to do that. And I'm wondering if you're doing that, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Let me hit that one, because thank you for coming up and asking those questions. So the town that I used to work at was Windsor Locks. So very similar in terms of demographic and resident count, but you guys are obviously a lot larger in terms of geographic location. The businesses that we audited in Windsor Locks were all of those. Nora, can you go back? It's probably, we're looking for the slide. It's the D1, D3. It's got the, oh, right there. So in the world of assessing, there are businesses that are determined by class. And you can see them up there. It's S, A, B, C, D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5. And each one of those classifications does have roughly the size of their personal property. So when you look and go back to the S, those are your real small businesses. Those are businesses whose personal property declarations are between 0 and $50,000. What are examples of those? Let's say you own a photography shop and you work out of your house. And maybe you have a laptop, a couple cameras, tripod. That would be one of those. Those aren't being, did you have a follow-up question? So we're going to audit them all. So we're going to audit every business over the next 3 years that's above the $50,000 threshold here in Winsted. So any business that's declaring $50,000 or more, so it's all businesses. It's not a, favoritism. It's every business that's excuse me, above $50,000 will be audited. Now, what was the success rate in Windsor Locks? It was large. They predicted, I forgot how many millions of dollars, and there's a lot of industry there. They predicted we were going to get X. We blew it, or they blew it out of the water by multiple millions of dollars on some of our large industry. Your other question is, what do we need to do to increase the grant list? There are key things. One of the key things is get me out of the budget mode so I can start concentrating on the economic development of this town. Because every time a budget fails, it puts me back in the meetings, looking at budgets, looking at different items that we can present. We're going to get there, but there's a few items that we can look at, and they're not a real business that people are going to think, oh, well, that's exactly what Winsted needs. But let me explain. One of these businesses is a warehouse. And warehouses are getting built for hundreds of millions of dollars. What a warehouse does is they provide millions of dollars in tax revenue and absolutely has no drain on your services. And I mean, warehouses don't put kids in your school system. They typically don't have fires because they're brand new warehouses and they build great fire suppression systems. And typically, Amazon boxes don't fight with one another and the cops aren't being called out there every single day. So the first thing we need to look at is how do we get the biggest bang for our buck and really give you all the relief in taxes. So, commercial warehouses is one area. We do need to look at our small businesses. We need to look at those, clothing stores. We need to look at those niche retailers that can go out and have that walkable Main Street. Now, there's a little bit of an issue going on right now with our economy. It's Amazon Prime Days right now. And we all know if you can find it on Amazon and it can be at your house either today or tomorrow, a lot of the population are going to go right towards Amazon because it's easy. So a lot of small businesses are struggling right now. Is it going to stay that way? Unsure, but everything that I read and everything I look at, We have to find service-type oriented businesses because you can't buy a service online. That's one thing that I don't care who comes out with it. You can't go out and get your hair cut on Amazon. You can't go out and get your nails done on Amazon. So I think what you're going to see is a change in the retail philosophy that a lot of service-oriented businesses are going to come into play. And unfortunately, right now, while these, you even see big box retailers, they're closing every day. And it's sad. I grew up and, we had Best Buy, and we had Circuit City, and we had all these great retailers, and they're all gone. Because what these big retailers found out is they can still have a presence and be online and save a whole bunch of overhead. And we're seeing that throughout, not just Winsted, we're seeing that throughout the entire country. But it is a problem that keeps me up at night. It was one of the reasons the Board of Selectmen, that was their main focus when I interviewed with all of them. They said, we need economic development, Paul, and we need it now. And it's something that we look at every single day. We have a lot of abandoned buildings. We're bringing in developers every single day. But I'm going to tell you one thing. All eyes are on us right now. All eyes are on us, and all eyes are on every town. And when a developer wants to pony up 20, 40, 50, even $100 million, they want to see towns that have their stuff together. They want to see towns that are investing in themselves. Why should they make a $100 million investment in town if we're not willing to make the investment in ourselves? So, we all got to work together. We can get there. I got a lot of energy if you haven't noticed. But we're going to get those businesses here, small and large. Because I know in order to grow this town, we need to grow our tax base. We need to get those businesses in here. Because we can't keep coming back to you year over year over year, because contractual raises, insurance premiums, they're going to go up every year. I'm not going to tell you they're not. So if I don't grow that grand list, I don't grow that tax base, I know eventually you all are tapping out. And we're going to have some severe cuts that nobody wants to talk about. So I hear you loud and clear. Do I have all the answers tonight? No. I started 3 months ago. I'm excited to be here. I love being here. This is an absolute diamond of a town that just needs a lot of polishing, and I got my rag ready to polish.
Hi, Teresa Payton, 124 Meadow Street. I just wanted to not really respond because I'm not a selectman, but a couple notes about some of the public comment that was made and some of the comment that Nancy made. The first thing was the gentleman who spoke about approving money that you don't own. To be a teacher in the state of Connecticut, you're required to have certain levels of education and certifications, and those things cost money for our teachers and our staff members to obtain, and they certainly deserve salaries that are reflected of the investment that they've made in their education. Unions are not exclusive to school districts. There are unions at Stop and Shop, and when their contractual obligations come up, we certainly don't have the power to say, I refuse to pay 10 cents more for lettuce. We want our staff and our workers, from people who work in private businesses to the education sector, to be paid appropriately for their qualifications. I am by no means an expert on the regionalization of Litchfield and Wamogo, the new Region 20, but I can tell you that prior to that regionalization, the Gilbert School was still on average $4,000 to $7,000 less per pupil to educate our students. And although there was great advertisement about a $3 million savings for that regionalization, if you follow up a couple days later with the superintendent who negotiated that left right before it took effect, the towns are now facing over $2 million budget shortfall that has to now be considered for bonding. So not everything is truly as simple. And the other note on the regionalization is you have to have somebody that wants to regionalize with you, that has space and the desire to do so. It's not simply saying, we choose to regionalize. That's not actually an option. The last note that I wanted to make in regards to the budget is, although there's not a reduction to the Board of Education in this current budget, there is a reduction to the Social Services Department. And I'm not sure if everybody realizes that when you make reductions to things like social services, not only do the needs not go away, they get transferred. And a huge part of the work that happens in the public school system is social services. And with that reduction in the budget, that money is not shifting to our school district budget. We will continuously be asked to do more with no increases. When you cut things, they don't go away. I can't speak to exact numbers and percentages, but we have a large population of residents in this town who utilize social services, and now a primary part of what happens in our public schools are social services. And I know that our principals and superintendents that are here tonight could attest to how much of their work truly is social services. So again, although you did not make a cut to the education department, you certainly have impacted the public education system with the cuts that you did make. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Jill Zitney, 159 Pratt Street. I am a relatively new resident to town. It'll be a year and a month. I have lived in a lot of different towns in Connecticut, sorry, I'm a little nervous, and around the state. And I have been attending meetings, selectmen meetings, planning and zoning meetings, to really get a feel of what it's like behind the scenes. And I can do nothing but applaud the work that went into this budget and the hours that these people have put in for us. Number one, the police officers, can I just thank you again? Who works for how many years without a contract? And the teachers, the responsibility that the previous speaker just talked about is increasing every year, and not to pay them what they're worth. It is expensive. You have to pay for your license. Most of the teachers bring their own supplies from home. Your students are benefiting. Someone spoke about the ambulance, and another person followed up with, why don't we volunteer? Who, number one, can afford to volunteer? There are empty committees that anyone watching on the YouTube or sitting here can volunteer for. There are town committees that have no one there. So there's your chance to volunteer. You can speak up there. You can have your voice heard before we have 3 votes. Does anyone know about how hard the fire chief worked to get a grant for some of the services? And tax fairness. How could you not want tax fairness? Why would you want to pay for something at a different rate than your neighbor? And just say, I could say, oh, you know, my deck is icky. I don't want to pay that much money. Or my garage or whatever piece of my property is not the same as yours, so I want to pay less. I just think that this is a very smart budget, and we would be very smart to accept it, because I don't know, looking at this, where else you would want your town to suffer. Roads. Mr. Harrington spoke about contracts. Things get expensive. We're behind. Yes, roads don't just go like, okay, let's pave. You have to fix the pipes underneath. There are other problems involved. There are things behind the scenes. And I just wanted to tell you, as a new citizen and your neighbor who is so thrilled to be in this growing town, we picked this because of what we saw growing over a year we drove through, that the vision for the grand list, the the fact that we have, again, police officers who work in they're not even caring about the building they're in, which they should. And I just cannot be thankful enough for landing here and for everyone who is behind the scenes working for us. Thank you.
Yes.
Holly Cassidy, 111 Torrenford Street. I'm here to also comment on the fire and ambulance. I think we're very fortunate in town to have the number of volunteers that we do. Congratulations to Fire Chief Legassi for getting a $350,000 grant, and for it to be considered to cut his position. He's saved the town threefold, fourfold of what his salary is. To me, that's a pretty good investment. Thank you, Gene. Also, he goes on medical calls. So now you want to ask all of our volunteers to go on additional medical calls. I know Winchester Fire, they apply for grants. They fundraise every year. These people are out there volunteering their time already, working hard to get equipment, to keep equipment, to get grants, and to try to put more on them when we know nationally volunteerism is down. So I think we should appreciate all of the help and assistance that we have. Thank you.
Brian Sunday, 152 Spencer Hill Road. I just wanted to say briefly that as a resident in town, I've got a kid in the school system, and I know a lot of folks in town who love the community. I'm worried about where we go from here if this budget fails. The town manager alluded to difficult choices to make, difficult cuts that he doesn't want to talk about. Maybe I missed it tonight. I'm getting old. No one mentioned these cuts, but if anyone in the room missed the last Board of Selectmen meeting, or the folks at home, if you missed the last Board of Selectmen meeting, there were a lot of cuts proposed, and frankly, I'm worried about them. If this budget doesn't pass, we're talking about funding for youth sports. That's soccer, basketball, baseball. It's on the list. That could happen. There's conversation about eliminating our paid fire chief. Can't happen from my point of view. But things like that will be on the table. Getting rid of funding for Soldiers Monument Commission. I love Soldiers Monument. I go to the programming there. I try to bring my kid there. Try to do what I can to get the next generation of people interested in Soldiers Monument, this important piece of our town that's on our seal. That could go. Laurel City Commission. Laurel Parade, since I've been in town most of my life, I'm 50 years old now, since I was a kid, a foundational piece of our town. Funding for programs like that on the chopping block. So I'm worried about what happens if this budget doesn't pass. I think it's a great budget. I think the Board of Selectmen at this point have worked incredibly hard to get us to a budget that makes sense, that I think all of us should support. And I just want to end on something that Nora said, our Board of Education chairman, and this is for the folks at home too. If you are someone who does support the budget and you're worried about these cuts, you want to preserve services in our schools, our town, and everything else, and you think these guys have done a good job, do what you can to get this budget passed. Call 3 or 4 people. Remind them to vote. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Sunday, I appreciate your comments. If you go back, we do YouTube all the Board of Selectmen meetings. We did have a meeting last night, so it wasn't the last Board of Selectmen meeting, it was the special meeting last Tuesday. I just didn't want to confuse you, have you sit through a 2-3 hour meeting last night. Hey, where are these cuts? It's actually the special meeting a week ago yesterday, or a week ago today, excuse me, a week ago today. So if you go on our YouTube channel and you're looking for that meeting that Mr. Sunday talked about, it wasn't the last one, it was the one before, it was a Tuesday special meeting. But thank you.
Anybody else? Jim, you want to come up for a second time?
I just wanted to respond about one of the comments for the school consolidation. And Region 20 in Litchfield did save $3.5 million. There is some issue about an addition of $2 million, but my understanding is that that was an existing expense between at least one other school that was not caused by the consolidation. And I don't think there's any harm in looking at a consolidation. If there's something truly wrong with it, then let's present it and go from there. But not just to walk away from that possibility of saving that much money. Thank you.
Jay Markwell, 68 Overlook Road. Kudos to Jamie. Awesome work. Kudos to our teachers. Kudos to our ambulance and our police department. Sorry. I agree. I think it's a good budget. I've sat in at your meetings and I've heard all the hard work you're doing, but I see one flaw that to me is important, and it is our social worker. And I'm not sure how many here have spent time with her who know the work that is done by the social worker. Sorry, I lost my, and I think all of us could agree it's a valuable position. So to cut it from 40 hours to 19, excuse me, 35 hours to 19 is a huge cut. Where are these people going to go when she's not in the office? Are they going to go to other town employees? What is their education on social work? Where are they going to go? I think we can agree there's a great need. Do you feel that the need is going to lessen because the office isn't open as many hours? I would like to know, what is the savings per year to the Winsted taxpayer by cutting the social services position to 19 hours? And does the loss to support to Winsted residents outweigh the savings and added work to the other town employees? Thank you.
Anybody else want to comment?
Good evening. My name is Paul Marino, 678 East Wakefield Boulevard, and I am a member of the Board of Selectmen. First of all, thank you, everybody who came out tonight. Our participation tonight versus our first two meetings is incredible. A lot of great thoughts, a lot of great feedback, and I welcome this, and thank you again for everybody that came out tonight and for everybody that spoke. I'm guessing there's 50 to 60 people in this room, and we know there's about 40 watching tonight on YouTube. That's 90 people here, or 90 people combined that have gotten information about this budget. And I'm going to spend a little time with you on it also, but if the 90 people here that support, if you support this budget, if you reach out to 5 of your neighbors and you convince them to vote in favor of this budget, we can overcome the vote that happened last time. So let's spend a few minutes talking about some of the parts of the budget. I think we've talked about a lot of numbers. I want to talk about some of the things that make it personal, I think, to all of us. So first of all, let me start by saying that the Board of Selectmen fully support this budget. It was unanimously voted on, and each selectman at our meeting on Tuesday committed to supporting this budget publicly. So that includes our mayor, Selectman Hester, Selectman Lemire, who is not here tonight, unfortunately, Selectman Perez, and Selectman Pozo all put their names to this budget and all publicly said that they will support it. We need your help to get this passed. We need you to reach out to your friends and neighbors who live in town and vote here to help get this passed. We've talked about a lot of numbers tonight. I want to bring it a little more personal, as some of you have. And I want to refer back to the police department. Town Manager Paul Harrington spoke about the lack of a contract for 2 years, but what that had equated to was record resignations. We were down to a police force that was really close to 50% of what it needs to keep our town safe. They were the third lowest paid in the state of Connecticut. 168 towns and cities in this state, they were the third lowest paid. Well, thankfully, we've got a new contract passed. And thankfully, they're now at least around the 50% mark in terms of the rest in towns and cities in the state. We're also seeing hiring is back. We are now, not that they're on the streets yet because they're in various stages of training in the academy, we are now back to a full complement of police officers in our town. And ladies and gentlemen, that is an incredible achievement that's happened in the last 6 months in this town. So we're really excited about that. You all have spoken about the ambulance. There was nothing we could possibly do there but say, yes, we need a second team to man the ambulance. We can't risk having a resident wait when seconds matter. Last week, I decided for the first time personally to address some of the garbage that was spread around town during the last budget. We all saw the postcard that talked about, Paul likes to joke about the kayaks. That was just one part of the garbage that was attached to that postcard. And folks, if you don't think there's another one coming, check your mailbox. It'll be there. And it'll be so much full of the same garbage we saw last time. If you want the facts of the budget, reach out to your selectmen, reach out to Paul. If you see any of that garbage, we're happy to address it with you. But when I posted on Facebook and I tried to get some of the facts out there, I heard loud and clear your feeling about roads. And I want to spend a few minutes, and I'm going to go over my 3 minutes if you'll indulge me. I want to spend a little time tonight getting the message out about where we are with roads, because it makes everybody here crazy to talk about roads. First of all, this is a 30-year problem. This didn't happen in the last year. This didn't happen in the last 10 years. This is a 30-year problem where the town didn't invest in roads. And now we're faced with road conditions that are unacceptable and a budget that you all can see doesn't have a lot left for roads. I want to talk about the bond for a second because I got a lot of feedback about, we bonded all this money and I don't see anything happening. Well, unfortunately, the roads in the bond project were not shovel ready. It takes time. And I've got the list and I may go through them, but there's 22 road projects on the bond. 22 road projects in various stages of completion. Case Avenue, substantially complete. Case Avenue Bridge, substantially complete. Whiting Street, substantially complete. Taylor Brook Culvert, substantially complete. These are all bond projects that were started and completed. Marshall Street, some rework needs to be fixed, but also substantially complete. Projects currently active: Old Crowbrook Road and Indian Meadow Road, Elm Street, Hubbard Street, Upland Road, Hannafin Road, Oakdale Avenue, all in various stages of work being done. Some of it's engineering, and you know what? Paul and I jokingly call, you know what's sexy are finished roads, right, Paul? When a road gets finished and you're driving on it, that's sexy. You know what's not sexy? Engineering. It's not sexy when we got to replace the drains first. Somebody said, why don't we mill and pave more roads? You know, some of our roads, if we send a mill machine over it, it'll crush 100-year-old pipes that are underneath it. You can't do that. There are projects that are getting ready to pave in the next 3 to 4 weeks. There are projects that are out to bid. The Public Works Department is working their tails off, ladies and gentlemen, to get these done for you. It's not as fast as we want it. It's not every road in town. We got 81 miles of road that need work. But we're working on it. Progress is being made. And we talk about budgets. The part that we all don't know is, do you want a flat budget? Hell, I'd like to have no tax increase. But do you want a flat budget, or do you want to invest in roads? I've yet to have anybody come up and say, I want you to raise the mill rate 2 points. That would give us $2 million. We could put it into roads. $2 million would make a dent. But no one came and said that. They all want the roads done, but how are we going to pay for it? We're making up for 30 years of problems here. 30 years of neglect of the roads. This board takes roads extremely seriously. We had our Public Works Director at our meeting last night. He sat before us for an hour, and we asked 100 questions about roads and where we are. We need to get it done, folks. We need to get this budget through so we can focus on the things that will bring business to town, help us with our grand list, and attract investors here so that we don't have to look at tax increases every year. Finally, I had a lot of feedback. I still have people sending me messages on Facebook saying I'm not voting for this budget. And I ask every one of them why. I don't get a lot of answers. No one wants to tell me why they don't like it. They just want to vote no. Well, the time has passed for voting no. If we want to get our town moving forward, we need to get this budget passed. Again, it's unanimous with the board. Every board member has agreed to publicly support this. We need to get this done. Please get your friends and neighbors out to the polling places on July 30th, and let's get this budget passed so we can start moving the town forward with items that are equally important that the board wants to take up. I'm so excited by the turnout tonight. I'm so excited by your feedback, and thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I know it's a little warm in here. I see a lot of you waving yourself with the voting slips. I've been on the board. This is my 9th budget, and this by far has been the most difficult budget. I've taken a lot of emails the last couple of weeks since we sent this budget to town meeting, and a recurring theme has been I am misinformed for my statement that a 0% increase is unrealistic. As Paul mentioned earlier, with the inflation and the drivers, we were starting off in the negative, which means if we did nothing, we still wouldn't be able to have a 0 increase budget. I was told that I've never been in private industry. In private industry, you have to make tough cuts. That is true. The majority of my adult working life I've spent in the private sector. I've gone years without yearly raises. I've gone years where I had to cut training and education of my staff. Town government is not private enterprise, though. We have unions, and with unions we have guarantees, union guarantees, contractual obligations. That's why we can't have a 0% increase. We still have, across the state, issues with juvenile crime, needing juvenile crime reform. There are still children from the cities coming out to towns like Winchester and Torrington and Norfolk stealing cars. Do you want to cut the police? No, you need more police to cover issues like that. We have a lack of volunteers. Not that long ago, we had 5 departments with the fire department. Each one had 25 members, and there were waiting lists. Now we have a total of 25 firefighters, all volunteer, or mostly volunteer. Same thing with the ambulance. They celebrated their 50th anniversary not too many years ago. They are down to between 10 and 13 active volunteers. Do you want to cut that? The worst thing that you want to hear when you call 911 is, you're going to have to hold on, we don't have anyone right now. Is that acceptable? In my opinion, no. That's why I support this budget, and the rest of the Board of Selectmen has selected to support this budget fully. In closing, nobody wants to pay more taxes. We get it. But taxes, sometimes you have to pay to draw new businesses to town. Another failed budget, what would it do? Somebody asked, what do these cuts do? There is still a drug problem in this country, and we are reducing our social service director to part-time. There are still issues that the town faces. We need a new school superintendent. A third failed budget, what's that going to do to the people who are applying for that? Is the caliber of candidates going to drop? If a budget fails for a third time, maybe we don't get the top of the top. Same thing with businesses. Paul talked about drawing businesses to town. A third failed budget, they may look not as favorably on Winchester as they had previously. For the longest time, Winchester was the punchline of a joke. And over the last 9 years, the board has done a great job in changing that image and changing that perception. It started back with Bob Geiger and continues today with Paul Harrington. We need to get out, we need to support this vote, and you need to bring as many supporters, and everybody in this room who supports the budget needs to bring all their friends to vote, because we really need this budget to pass, because if another one fails, the cuts get worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes? You gotta come up here.
I just have a question about the social service job, the person. If we cut her in half, let's just say that, then what's going to happen? I mean, I work at the schools, all right? I know tons of things that people do for the good. And this person is one of these people that you're talking about that made all this good. And if we cut her, we're losing. The kids are going to lose. Whether they lose in education, it's part of their life. They only have us. They only have us. That's all they have. They have parents. Yes, they have parents. I don't mean that. But what I'm saying is, if we don't stick up for them, that lady is one of those things we need to stick up for. And it isn't that I disagree with all these things that you're saying and you have in writing. I'm fearful of that cut. I'm very fearful of that cut. And that's it.
All right, we promise we're going to get you all out of here. I'm going to, well, somebody has to move the question, but I want to touch a few questions that came up throughout that I think we still owe you an answer to. And I especially want to address the woman that came up, first time ever, nervous as can be. Awesome job. I remember when I first got involved in town government, I got up and I was nervous. You did a great job, so you did an awesome job. You all want to see what you're getting for your dollars. And there's something else that I'm going to own tonight. I did a bad job explaining personal property the first time around. We've done a bad job as a town communicating with all of you. I don't know if you've been on our social media pages lately. You may have seen a new, renewed presence on social media. We owe that to you. And you're gonna find more things as we start rolling through. One of the things we also need to do, I hate to say this in a public forum, our website stinks. We need to change it, all right? You need to be able to get on our website and get off of it quickly. You don't need to hunt and find things. We need to do a better job communicating with all of you. And I think, and I can't sit here tonight and give you everything you want in one day. All I can do is look you straight in the eyes, commit to you and everybody else in this room, everybody else watching at home, and anybody else that watches this later on. We're gonna communicate better with you. We're gonna let you know where your tax dollars are going. You know, Selectman Marino came up here and we joke, we talk every once in a while, and we talk about, you know, the sexy items. The sexy items is, you know, that nicely paved road. It's not sexy as all the stuff underneath it. But we should have been communicating with you for many years, letting you know we're out to engineering. We just got the engineer report back. You all approved a massive bond project and heard nothing. I'd be grumpy too. We need to communicate better with you. So I'm committing to you, I'm committing to all of you, that we will do a better job as a town communicating with you, okay? One of the things, and you know, we do have an option on our website to sign up to stay informed. I signed up today and did a couple of things that I didn't get informed. So we got issues. I can't iron them out all, I had to prepare for them. We got issues. Stay with us. I guess in the interim, if you are on social media, we are gearing a lot of stuff towards Facebook until we figure out this website and things of that nature. But I commit to you that we will do a better job communicating with you so you know where your dollars are being spent. And some of the communication, it's not going to be that sexy thing. It might be one of those engineering reports. But at least you know we're doing something. And that's important. Because $40 million is a whole lot of money. If it was sitting here, we'd all be wrestling on the floor for it. We would. It's a lot of money. I get it. But we need to tell you what we're doing with it. We need to do a better job. And I promise you we will. Going back to the TMA, there was a question on TMA that it was done in the past or we've done something in the past. I can't comment on that. I wasn't here. I heard stories. I heard drones were flying and people were getting fouled and all kinds. This is a professional organization. And one of the things that I saw firsthand with this professional organization is before they get a surprise bill in the mail, there's a negotiation between the business owner, the town, and the professional agency TMA. So it's not a surprise that, oh, my tax, they're going to know the process along the way. They're going to have an opportunity to say why they believe their restaurant booth is worth this instead of that. It's a very fair and open process that we bring in the business owners. And it's not a sneak attack. There's not a knock on the door and it's, you know, a man or woman says, hey, I'm the TMA police and I'm here to check, you know, what you should be reporting. No, there's letters that go out. There's appointments that are made. And it's a very professional process. So there shouldn't be any lawsuits when we're all done 3 years from now when we're $36 million growth in our grant list. As far as the social worker is concerned, you know, there were difficult decisions that were made at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. That was one of them. There were some other sensitive items. Obviously, if the budget does pass, the budget goes forward. If the need is there, if you haven't noticed, I'm not afraid to ask for many things. I will be back at that Board of Selectmen, and I will find a way to possibly fund that position at an additional, you know, 19 hours to the full 35 hours. I don't promise anything. It's not worth it, right? But I can tell you that if we see a need and my office door is, and I can't concentrate on the economic development because I'm dealing with somebody that's distressed and is down on their luck, I know what I'm tasked with. I will be before this Board of Selectmen really, really quick to say, hey, let me go apply for this grant, because that's how the position originally started. It was funded with a grant. And then eventually the town took it over. Tougher times came, but I commit to you that if that demand is there, I'll go and try and find that money. We'll figure it out. You know, there's opioid money we can look at. There's all different kinds of things. You know, this was something that happened a week ago. I haven't had a lot of time to digest to say, okay, what can we do? But, you know, if the need is there, I know this Board of Selectmen. I've only been with them for a few months, but They cater to the cares of this community. They really do. I think I addressed it all. I thank everybody, and I also want to thank Gilbert. I tasked Gilbert with a tremendous task. I had a selectman reach out to me. This individual likes to give me a very short window to get things done. Hey, get Jim Rollins in here in 2 days and tell him to talk about all the roads. Hey, what do you think if we get the YouTube channel up at Gilbert? Sent it over to Mr. Shakru, and he got it done. So thank you. I think it is a great show that people couldn't make it. And even if they can't watch it at home, they can watch it at their leisure. So I want to thank you personally for being able to do that for us. And that's great. It's a great business partner in what you provide for our schools, but what you just did for our community. So thank you all. Mr. Moderator, I'm giving it back to you.
Thank you, Paul. The budget is so tight that we couldn't afford to turn on the air conditioner tonight. Well, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting to referendum to be held on July 30th. Okay? Second, Pete Marchand. Good night. Go into your car and cool off and turn your air conditioner on. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of the adjournment? I'm sorry. Opposed? Motion passes.
Good night, everybody. If there was somebody made a recommendation.